続けてだけど僕は僕にかけ続けて消えないイメージはラッキーセブン昨日の僕と競り合ったコースが憧れ続けてただから道はまだ
Okay, so we started off the chapter with getting to know more about the zombie girl from last week, especially about her immortality and her like amnesia. They mention she's a genius scientist, apart from the gadget used in this chapter and maybe like a handful of some other ones in the future. But honestly, I don't think that's gonna like have an impact in the story as much as her amnesia will, especially since I don't think they can get any emotional moments out of the fact that she's a scientist. Like the only relevancy I think it might have is her making some weapons, like the ones she's using in this chapter, for example. Maybe like a couple of other ones in the future. What's more interesting to me is her amnesia, because I think if the story continues and like actually isn't fucking axed in a month or two, she will probably regain her memory back sooner or later, and I assume it's either gonna be one of the two ways. Either some sort of emotional comeback around probably Jinta's granddad, since I assume she was kind of G's with him and everything, considering he was the one that left her in the basement. I assume maybe she's gonna find some kind of like keepsake or something that will like awaken that memory that she used to have. And the question is whether that's gonna be in like the human world, that is it something that Jinta has, for example, or whether it's gonna be in the spirit world that we'll probably go to like in the future. And the second route I think they might take is like a battle shonen type of route, in which is probably going to awaken a memory by like fighting someone she previously fought, or maybe getting her memory back as some sort of like power up, akin to like Super Saiyan or like Sage Mode or that type of stuff. There has been power-ups present so far with Manaka's grown-up transformation. I forgot how it's exactly called. I'm also kind of curious if she's generally kind of emotionally intelligent, because she does seem to care for like Jinta and Manaka, or whether that's like something to do with Jinta's granddad. Like maybe since he already locked her in the basement, he ordered her to protect Jinta like once he finds her out, or maybe it's the fact that they share the same blood, so I assume the quote-unquote scent of sacred blood would be similar to Jinta's granddad, and she might kind of project them as being the same person, or at least think of them as nearly being the same person. Then the chapter ends with the new villain reveal, who's looking like she's wearing some sort of military uniform. If I had to guess, she really gives me like an insect vibe, especially the joints in the fingers and the layers on her forearms. I don't know exactly what's about them that give me the insect vibe, but it's that. And if she's an insect, I assume she has the same kind of like insect mask as Endema from Overlord. The only other option I can think of is her being like some sort of android or robot, especially because her arms do have a bit of an organic look, especially around the elbow part, almost like gloves. And I think if she was an android, I assume she would have like a metallic structure around her body and everything, and that would probably explain the crack around her like eye way better than the insect mask analogy. A pretty decent chapter. Rather will start brought back to the past for the septuplets mother and father. The fact that her perspective means we're probably gonna like get that much detail out of like all the situations that have happened. Some kind of like general idea, like with the bullying situation or the petrol situation, but I assume it's not gonna come into play until we actually see Gakuon talk about why he is what he is. Talking about him, I'm kind of surprised that Gakuon is a fake name. I wonder why he specifically chose that one, or whether his like actual name is gonna come into play at all in the story, or whether it's just gonna be like something that's skipped over completely. You can see how cracked he is at the piano when you look at the fucking world he did. Kinda looks like the same one that Fantas created. I actually kind of wonder what happened between like them, or like what happened to Gakuon that caused him to actually just become like a shitty person. But even then, the same thing happened to the mom. At least she like acknowledges that she has changed, and I doubt he does. Yeah, but I can see the mom is rather sad about the situation with her like family. It's a bit of a tragic thing for reminiscing about her like every kid. They do make it in time before she actually does die. Do the quote-unquote final words that Lucky says to her, I'm not convinced that they are his words. The quotation marks for them makes me kind of feel it's probably like his ego thing speaking, or maybe it's like some words that one of his siblings wanted to say. Just glad they made it before she dies. Okay, so start by entering the magical guild, which actually looks pretty cool. I like the Zodiac Sign division of the planet. That was like a big focus about discrimination that like non-magic users face in the magical guild, which is kind of stupid to me, considering I doubt they're able to like fully provide just for themselves, and the fact that most of the guild jobs actually help out like normal people, as in like the 7-star job, the 5-star jobs, etc. that we did like earlier. Nobody seems to notice the fact that magicians look down on them as non-magicians, apart from like Anemone. Then we see a little maid kid getting bullied by one of like the magicians, and he is a big dickhead. Not only does he like trip on purpose and everything, he also, the fact that we deal with him so quickly probably means he was kind of washed up as a magician either way, so at least that's good. It's good that we got a shortcut to the archives, because even Ginka says that the person that noticed them knows. Probably means we have to get out soon. And knowing the pace of the series, I wouldn't be surprised if we did get out in like 3 chapters. Sagittarius was actually like 2 or 3 planets away from where we are, I think. So we have some free time for now. Okay, and then we see what I assume will be the next bad guy. I assume that because of the fact that he has kids in like tubes full of water, has some chopped limbs, and he doesn't look very approachable. It kind of looks like a Mog from Elden Ring. Also, I'm not sure whether it was him, or whether like I'm misremembering something, but he really gives the same vibes as Anemone's master did, at his like appearance wise. Also, the fact that it was Ginka's magic and not like Glona's magic or anybody else's means that we are probably in more trouble than we would have been. Carla originally said that we shouldn't use magic if we're not members of the guild, but I guess that kind of implies also that there is magic users outside of the guild, possibly like some sort of, not rival guilds, but different kind of similar group of magicians, kind of like Akatsuki maybe. The chapter was actually pretty decently paced, which I'm really happy about, considering I wasn't a big fan of how fast the pace was in the beginning. I think if it continues this pace, it might actually survive for a while. Okay, so this is another Doom dick riding chapter, which is, well, like 10th one in a row maybe at this point. We already had enough of those. At least I'm glad that Marsh's clock is going up. Oh, it's probably gonna still take like a couple of chapters before he actually wakes up. Ryo is doing pretty decent considering how strong Doom is, and also the fact that he's actually kind of like a good character now, kind of like a schizo hero, like Arthur from Fire Force. With Order's help, he's able to actually unleash his like third, which looks kind of like a Bodhisattva. They have like way less arms, obviously. What do you know? Obviously, it has no effect on Doom whatsoever, and he absolutely wrecks him right after he unleashes his fucking third. And with Ryo gone, it's just a Doomfest for everyone else. Not Doomfest, but like Despairfest. I don't think he's gonna do much before Marsh arrives. I don't think he's going to kill any important characters. Like maybe he's gonna like destroy some like civilians and shit, but we're probably safe otherwise. But just chapter mostly focused on action, so I wouldn't say there's much to talk about. Though I'm kind of tired of them deriding Doom so hard, especially because it's not even that like he's the final villain. So we see some more stuff from like Julius Lucius and person basically now. We do see the Dark Red, like the Zognatus trio, but the fact that when Dante is disfigured and Vanica is blacked out, like silhouetted out, maybe probably means they have some sort of like injury or whatever that's gonna leave like a scar on them. At least that's what I would assume. He restores Morris pretty easily and also mind controls him, but nothing new, we already seen him do that. The fact that Land of the Sun looks so much like Japan is actually kind of funny to me though. Obviously it was inspired by Japan and everything with the whole aesthetic, but it's literally a near one-to-one copy. I expected a bit of variation maybe. The Ural Guidance summons like a biggest Hydra, which I think with combination with like the Black Sea is like reference to Yamata no Orochi from Japanese mythology, which was slain and then left like a river of blood. They did also mention there was a Hydra back like years and years ago, so it's probably gonna be slain by Asta to show the people here how much he has grown, like Ryuzen 7 I mean. Talking about Ryuzen 7, they are all here I think. Looks like the Hydra's gonna be that with the people we've seen so far. The only one on the rooftop I think we haven't seen is the Shy Lady, and the one between Ichika and the fat guy and Gyaru. Unless we have seen her and I'm just forgetting. But yeah, she does give you some kind of like shy yandere vibe type of stuff, you know. Okay, also we see Asta training with the other Ryuzen 7 members. But I would suspect the guy in the back is also a Ryuzen 7 member, so I will say member. He absolutely decimates Asta. He also has the same coat that Asta had right after time skip. The fact that he says he's the strongest member, I think that's probably a curveball. I don't think he's going to be the strongest. I think the guy behind that's playing the shamisen will probably turn out to be the top one. And the group, I mean like strength-wise at least. It feels off to say that he's the strongest when in reality, if he was the strongest. I like the chapter, it's nice seeing some more of Julius. And also I like the designs of the Ryusen 7, so it was a good chapter. Okay, so honestly the fact that the Sense Master is categorized as more unlucky than Abitrite is unintentionally funnier than most of the gag stuff that has been like in the magazine, well from the gag series. Kinda like how it's not their first encounter and looks like he's getting absolutely trashed every time. Like he's actually like a Team Rocket member. Honestly, Fuku's like ability to utilize Unlife over like her hair and her bullet is really creative. It's still surprising to me considering how creative all other abilities that like the Alpha has shown so far, especially like Andy's. Then we get Gina on board finally. She kinda self-sucked her own dick with like the answer to Fang's question about who is the strongest. Because I swear, she is usually the one who cares for others, like she did with like Spring and like the other Union members. Can we finally get Gina on board? I think the more we learn about her now, the more it's gonna impact her death in anime. And with the quest beginning, I'm kinda curious if we're gonna do full-on list of quests with Fuku first, or whether we're gonna get back to Andy to get it to around the same point, and then we can switch between them. I think that's gonna work better than us doing from like 0 to 100 Fuku, and then dropping the tension by switching to how Andy did in the beginning. The chapter was pretty good, so we're gonna have to see how next week starts. Okay, Momo is actually fucking insane. His blooming being dreams is kinda like, I don't know if we actually knew this, but it's kinda an obvious power in hindsight. He actually Aizen and Tsukishima's Tayo in this chapter. Stopping Tayo sword with one finger, then he has Zangetsu as cloak while he picks him up. Also the fact that he was somewhat involved in Tayo's accident came out of nowhere, but it's actually so in character for him. Like when you think about it, it's such an obvious thing that he would do. The fact that he says that he chose Tayo for Mutsumi instead of like her choosing him herself is so fucked up. I really like the direction his character is going. The fact that he actually puts his family values so high is pretty interesting. He's been saying it for like ages now. Dream World, you can see how much it actually fucks up Tayo. Like initially it's a bit of a surprise, but I feel like in like the later panels you can see the shaking of his skin and his eyes look like they're scared of giving up. He acknowledges that if he just let it go it will be perfect. And we finally get to see some Kyojiro, which isn't that surprising to be honest. I just kinda wonder if he's actually gonna do something. By that I mean if we're gonna have like a proper fight with Momo, or if we're going to maybe focus on Tayo getting out and going to find the gold ranked spice, while Momo and Kyojiro is kind of off screen until we get the result of the fight. Momo will probably win. Even if Momo does win, I can't see Kyojiro being mind controlled. He's the last person I can see being mind controlled. Like if anything, I could see Tayo going out of the story for a bit and Kyojiro being the protagonist, but I think that's gonna be less likely than Kyojiro losing and just being held captive either way. Actually, amazing chapter. Momo is so cracked, man. We're just gonna have to see how well he develops in the future. On the path that he is right now, I think he actually might become a pretty fucking good villain. Once the Ironmaker comes out, obviously. Just need to see what's in his head to value family this high. And once we do, and his ambitions are explained, I can see him being a really good villain. I can't see how they can top him in the series even. Okay, so we have some more horse racing with Imagawa and everything. I really like all the comparisons of the horse racing with like actual like F1 racing, with like the flags and the quote-unquote wheel changing, even on the shade wall, because like a racetrack is elliptical type of. I like how they utilize Genba's face changing ability. I really hope if it does get an anime, they utilize actual race sounds, as in like changing the wheels sound when they actually change the horse, some kind of drifting sounds when they're on the corners. It's gonna give me same vibes as Dempsey Roll from Hajime no Ippo. I just kinda wonder what the actual big thing is that Imagawa is gonna do next chapter. It looks like he is taking off his mask, but I do hope his face still has some horse-related stuff on it, rather than just being a mask. I feel like that would be in his character. Chapter was alright, nothing like amazing, but at least it set up something for next week. Okay, so we have a pretty good color page, with like Chinatsu drinking and stuff. Taiki nearly fumbled the bag, but he did come back with the tracksuit idea. Then again, Chinatsu saying she wants to go to Cafe Kali carried him too, because he probably wouldn't offer it by himself after they're done shopping. Now that the manager is mad at Taiki, I just wonder what she's actually gonna do. I swear they just put her in to change fucking the status quo that was there, and now that it's no longer status quo, because Taiki rejected Hina, she's probably just gonna be like another person to remind Taiki that he should like Hina instead, which is just gonna be annoying, because we all know that's not gonna happen. I mean, like, the awkwardness between Hina and Taiki is probably gonna continue for like a while now. There's no reason why it wouldn't, and they already started the date, so at least we know it's gonna be happening next week. The fucking comments that the guys made while like passing by Chinatsu remind me of like Rent a Girlfriend comments in like every other chapter when Mizuhara was going out with Kazuya, and it's not meant to be a compliment for the story. Hopefully with them going on a date and Hina being out of the picture, we go back to actual good stuff between them and not focus on someone that's not going to end up with Taiki in the future anyway. So, the weather lady is pretty cool. I like the design. She's kinda hot as well, so that's a plus. And we see more of Dabi, which, for better or worse, is still alive. He does have a raw-ass look on his face. I would say it's fire, because it's literal fire, but raw is probably the better description. Even though he himself is cool and everything, I'm not sure how much I actually like him still being alive, because we already did have a couple of chapters dealing with him, with like Shoto using his eyes and everything, with the whole Endeavor crew helping, dealing with Dabi, and now all of it is just taken away with the fact that he is alive and he's gonna go all for one, and Endeavor is probably not gonna be the one to finish him, because I feel like it should be Shoto's job to do it, and that's how Horikoshi has been building it up, I think. The only reason Dabi survived is to hate on Endeavor for a bit, just before he's beaten again. And the conclusion of their next fight is probably gonna be worse than the previous fight they had, so I just see no point in him actually living right now. Okay, and I think we should talk more about the person that's coming back, which is Twice. I know that's my speed reading as missing something, but I don't think Twice was meant to be alive, right? The only answer I can think of is that Toga took his blood and copied his quirk and made a bunch of clones, but it shouldn't be her right now in the fight, considering she should still be fighting Uraraka. So the clones are probably the ones she made while she was still transformed as Twice, but before she went to fight Uraraka. So there should be like a limit on how many there are, but I guess we'll just have to see next chapter. I mean, I'm kind of surprised how fast we're back to like non-serious part, but I don't really mind it. I like how spot on they are about like the Kumar comments for most of the characters, especially saying that once Keiko turns into a girl, more people will watch him. Because considering his content is boring as shit, I know I can't say much. If he was a hot girl, then people would watch it just for the fact that he is a hot girl. Also, saying Miharu should speak as little as possible just works so well, because for some reason a lot of people are fan of the characters that like are rather quiet and shy and everything. So good on Morihito for being knowledgeable in Kumar culture. But yeah, the designs, like the gender bend guys, were actually pretty good. I liked most of them. Actually, I liked probably all of them. But it's got like 10k people watching. They were actually about to start popping off. Literally we're about to enter the millionaire lifestyle, but you know, Wolf kinda fucked everything up. I don't think it's the last time we see this bunch, because it's not like a lot of the spells were used more than once, especially not the spells used in gag chapters. For a Witchwood chapter it was pretty good, and I say it as a rather Witchwood preferring individual. Okay, so start with the fight straight away. Well, I mean straight away. We do say goodbye to Choso. We pass the baton, and we finally get to see Tsukumo in action and her curse technique, which I think from the description gives her a fake mask. And for the standards of Jujutsu Kaisen power, it's not really that complicated. Since all I think this one does is give her fake mass, so it's almost like kind of like you being able to kick a football normally, but everyone else perceive it as being a bowling ball, which sounds pretty OP when you think about it. I like how both of them consider themselves opponents that are just not fun to fight, not ones they can't beat. We entered the last part of the chapter with Kenjaku unleashes his domain, which is what Tsukumo and Tengen wanted. I'm just wondering why they wanted him to unleash it. Also, unless my memory is bad, is this the first time we see his domain expansion? Okay, so we see like a flashback from the previous mission that Shishiba and Yotsumura were on. I'm not sure if it's the first time they met or if it's one of the first missions that they had together. Osaragi then has her fight with the NPC geisha lady that was with Yotsumura. She also has the Kagura gun umbrella, but with some extra details on it. But she doesn't seem to have any trouble fighting her. Then the focus shifts back to Shishiba and Yotsumura again, and we find that there's a ton of townsfolk that just fight for Yotsumura, as in like they want to fight Shishiba, because I assume he attacked Yotsumura, so which kinda gives me same vibes as how close-tied the Asakura people and Benimaru were, as like the mutual respect between them was quite high. But it also means that Yotsumura isn't probably the baddest guy we know. It was kinda obvious, but this is sort of a confirmation that he does have good motives regarding this destruction of JAA. Since the chapter ends with Shishiba's and Yotsumura's clash, which honestly looks like Yotsumura lost, considering his cheeks is probably gonna look like Kishiba's now, I'm just wondering if we're gonna focus on that fight the next chapter or whether we're going to deal with some other stuff first. But yeah, pretty action-packed chapter, but that's nothing new for Sakamoto days. Okay, so the Hunter x Hunter. Kinda funny how well Sarasa is able to deal with Fangs and Uvo, considering she was able to force them into helping handing the snacks out. Looks like they have a soft spot for her. We see some of the power cleaners, with the main one looking kinda like gone. Chrollo being able to calm everyone down just shows off how good his charisma was, even since he was a kid. The fact that he's able to play so many different characters in the Power Cleaner series, so the fact that he's able to imitate people pretty well has impacted his Nen ability that allows him to steal others' technique. Everyone gaining respect for Chrollo after the performance is not really that surprising, considering it was actually pretty impressive how well he managed the situation. We've known Phantom Troop actually is pretty humane when it comes to their members, at least, of how like Nobunaga was mad about Uvogin. I'm surprised even the troop itself started with something so pure as just wanting to tour the world and perform for kids. Though the fact that I don't remember Sarasa being in the future at all, or in the present rather, doesn't fill me with hope about her encounter with the what I assume are gang members, especially since they're already set on having some quote-unquote fun, which is probably not gonna be fun for her, but it is what it is. Since I doubt we're going to get all of the Phantom Troop backstory in one go, I assume we're going to finish off once they get rid of Sarasa and we slowly start turning evil, and then we deal with the gang members or something. Since we already have the troop part of the Phantom Troop, we'll probably get the Phantom part in the near future of like 3-4 chapters, and I assume after that we will probably go back to the present and finish the backstory at some other point, especially see how it relates to Kurta's clan assassination. Okay, so more hyping of Urara. They already hyped it enough last week, I think, with the silent treatment she did, but at least it's a nice history lesson to see that the fact that women were discriminated against, in the Rakugo at least. I feel like using both of those facts might be a bit too much. Oh yeah, also, didn't realize it till I was reading the chapter, but Momo and Hasho look really similar. I guess it's like the moustache and the glasses. You can see she's indeed good with like the amount of stuff she's able to materialize. Like she started with just like a cigar, but then being able to materialize pretty much the whole room with all the details is pretty impressive. Also, she does give me similar vibes to Kaisei from Arakawa's school, but I don't think that's really surprising, considering his specialty is playing women. So a woman being similar to him is just more credit to him, if I'm being honest. Not much this chapter, other than hyping up Urara, which is fine considering she's probably gonna be important for a while, but the chapter was still pretty good, so we just have to wait till next week. Okay, so Cypher Academy, not even gonna do any of the fucking riddles that they might pose. I'm not trying to be Riddler or anything, but most of them I assume are just a bit of a pain to do. Honestly, so far it still hasn't grabbed me how like some other ones did, like Ishinosa's Family Sense, for example. I think that one grabbed me way more just in like the first 2 chapters than this one did. There is a lot of words on most pages, especially because it's dialogue focused, but it's not really like Monogatari for me, where I care more about the characters. So far character dialogue doesn't mean much to me. Plus we already have the whole class revealed. The fact that the dreams are supposed to be lies either way. We will probably have some focus on each of the characters, explaining them like the true dream, but I see no point in revealing the fake one unless it's like some sort of direct opposite so that you can kinda infer. But some people do. Like, I still don't kinda care about the whole crypto thing. Like, it is what it is, but I think main point is that it's linked with the actual military state of the world. So I guess it's kind of like a good measure of how well we are doing with stopping the wars. Also, looks like one of the two, either Koga or Toshosai, are not being truthful. Toshosai is claiming the opposite, that Koga is. Even if it turns out one way or the other, I don't really care enough as of right now to actually be surprised or anything. I will not talk about this for long. Ichigoki's under control. Just not a series for me, I think. The art, it's trying to be like very funny with how expressive it is, especially with like the faces, but it's just not. The gags that they have so far are not the funniest, I'd say. Not very appealing to me, both design wise or personality wise, to even ignore it. I don't know if that's the problem with the author not being able to do this stuff properly, or if it's me being maybe slightly biased against gag series. Like Magu-chan was enjoyable for me, but this isn't. If I didn't try and read every new series that comes out, I would probably just skip this one. Sounding as nice as possible, I hope it does not survive past the 19 chapters that is the standard Axe classic. Especially since we do have some gag series that are already running, like High School Family and Robocop. A pretty big disappointment considering how other stuff from the batches. Ishinosa Family starts like the last chapter ended, which is with some nice dose of bullying of Tsubasa, and there's so many scenes of him bullying, so we are meant to feel bad for him, or at least emphasize the hatred for the bully guy. I expected we're gonna deal with like the bully situation like sooner or later, because there would be no point to actually show it if it wasn't gonna change, I think. But I didn't expect it to be like right in the next chapter. I think the best part, or like the most interesting part in the chapter, is the Kurama and Tsubasa said, I don't know how else to call it, but it do seems to be some sort of alter ego or whatever it is, especially in all the panels that contain Tsubasa in his room. There is 2 Tsubasas, with one of them being like a big ass hater of Nakajima, which is understandable considering how much of a dick he is, how much actual mental stuff is in the link between the guy in the head and the guy acting out, because it could all be just like a visual representation, but with all like the eye stuff being very sharp, something more like a bipolar disorder type of thing, multiple personality, or like one of the guys is locked in the head while the other controls. So the amnesia was real, but it wasn't real because he actually forgot his memory, kinda repressed it, but it's still there inside him.